How did the Washington Post become big news on a social media platform usually associated with makeup tutorials and silly dances? How did Dave Jorgensen channel his inner David Brent to become every Gen Zer's favourite, quote, wannabe cool uncle? And how can you too beat the clock to harness the power of TikTok before your competitors get in first? This is Xtra-Ordinary Marketing. How are we? Welcome to episode 26 of Xtra-Ordinary Marketing, a series which explores how innovative brands are shaking up their industries with the most clever, creative and compelling comms around. I'm Simon Vincent, the ex-CMO, and in this episode I'm exploring the social media platform TikTok. Now, if you know any young adults, if you've ever heard of some bloke called Donald Trump, or frankly, if you just exist in the world, you will have at least been made aware of TikTok. And if you're the founder, owner, director, CEO or CMO of an innovative challenger brand, and I know all of you are, you will have no doubt had someone suggest that your company joins it at some point. But I know what happened. You Googled it. You thought, this seems a bit weird. You then listened to a Gary Vaynerchuk podcast in which he told you it was the biggest thing in marketing right now and that you needed to be on it. You were kind of swayed, but then you were also kind of put off by his sweary, over-energetic style. You probably downloaded the app, you fiddled about on it for 20 minutes and got completely lost, and then you decided to maybe come back to it again later. And that was like 6 months ago. If this is you, TikTok probably failed to register for one of the following reasons. Number one, the content is unlike other platforms. The video is in portrait dimensions and often a bit lo-fi. Creators also add effects to the images that aren't quite the same as the filters you're used to on Instagram. They're sampling audio from pop music, comedians, politicians, and is that other users? The second reason why it probably felt alien was because the feed isn't like other platforms. Although you can follow specific accounts, the default stream is the For You one, and that just appears to be showing you stuff from like everybody who's on TikTok, whether or not you have any idea who they are. And the third reason why you probably didn't take to TikTok was because the only companies you saw on there were makeup and fashion brands. And the platform undeniably works well for companies in those arenas. But in this episode, I'd like to propose that you don't need to be making makeup or miniskirts to take over TikTok. What you need is the correct approach to content and a very clear understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, and of course how you'll be measuring success. If you have that, I believe any brand can benefit massively from embracing the fastest growing social platform out there. And in the next section, I'm going to illustrate how one company did just that, despite being a boring, stuffy old newspaper. It's no secret that traditional hard copy journalism is struggling. In the digital age, we get our information in so many formats and so quickly. The idea of buying a 40 or 50 page document that contains a bunch of stuff I'm not really that interested in, that might be 10 hours out of date for the news, it just kind of seems a bit bizarre, right? But as that industry struggles to stay relevant, there are also pretty well-founded fears that a generation of younger adults who are on the cusp of joining the workforce aren't engaging with hard news in the same way, and that may have some fairly obviously problematic repercussions for society. The Washington Post's reaction to this was to join TikTok. According to an article in the current affairs magazine The Atlantic, the publication saw the platform as being like two common, originally ridiculed but now extremely highly valued newspaper sections, the cartoons and the crosswords. In other words, a quote, seemingly light-hearted side project that serves to reinforce the paper's journalistic mission and, crucially, draw in new readers. Crucially, the editorial team realized that while the average subscriber to the post is, quote, well over 40, TikTok would be a really good way to, at the very least, get younger people to trust and know the brand. So, spearheaded by in-house video producer Dave Jorgensen, they set up an account and started posting short, satirical takes on the news of the day. By his own admission, Jorgensen tried to recreate the tone of the hit comedy series The Office, reasoning that his target Gen Z audience had grown up re-watching the series constantly and that they would therefore respond to that type of humour. Before you know it, the account had picked up more than 1 million followers and north of 50 million likes. Been nominated for numerous awards. In fact, the channel's become so successful that Jorgensen himself is well known as being simply the TikTok guy. But most importantly, the efforts have put the Washington Post back on the map with an audience that previously would have most probably ignored it. And that ignorance would have undoubtedly had affected sales dramatically further down the line. So, what lessons can you take from the newspaper's TikTok triumph? And how can you apply them to your own brand, whether what you make is lipstick, leggings, or something completely unrelated? Undoubtedly, the biggest reason the Washington Post has been successful on TikTok is because they had Jorgensen as the face of the company. I talk about the importance of brands having a personality all the time, but in the case of TikTok, having a literal sentient being as the focus helps massively. The majority of people on TikTok follow creators, not brands. And brands whose videos feature only what they make don't typically cut through here. The lesson is that if your company is starting out on TikTok, make sure you give it a face. This doesn't need to be a human. It could be a character or an animal. Be creative. Whatever it is, you need to be able to bring the product to life and engage with what you're talking about in a relatable and authentic way. And that brings us to the second point, which is that you do not need high production value. In fact, in some respects, the more simple and handheld the quality of the video, the better. Jorgensen himself admitted in an interview with Fox 5 Washington DC that he had to walk a fine line between making something that spoke the language of TikTok but was also polished enough for a newspaper. His main takeaway was that it doesn't have to be this incredibly well shot and edited thing. As he says, that's what's so great about TikTok, it's that it rewards authenticity. So, if you're starting your own company TikTok account, don't stress over making your videos perfect straight away. The important thing is to start and learn on the go. Watching other creators on TikTok is as important, if not more so, than posting your own content. And it's certainly much more important on TikTok than it ever has been on the established social platforms. So be reactive to trends and news, experiment, and then be guided by what works for your audience. And that handily brings me to my third piece of advice, which is to understand who that audience is and speak their language. According to statistics company Omnicore, as of March 2022, 3/4 of TikTok's global audience is between 18 and 34. And this group of Gen Zs and young millennials love the channel. The platform enjoys massive engagement rates. In fact, more Gen Zers now use TikTok every week than Instagram. So if your target customer is in that age group, TikTok is fast becoming the place where you need to be seen. But in fact, I'd argue that even if they aren't in that age group, TikTok should still be a platform that's on your radar. This is why I think what the Washington Post did was so extraordinary. Sure, their 40-year-old customer wasn't on TikTok, but a huge group of potential brand custodians was. And having clarity over why the paper was on the platform in the first place and who they were aiming their content at meant that the strategy worked. And so we come to measurement. And this is key, because when Jorgensen talks about the platform rewarding authenticity, what he's referring to is the feed element that I mentioned at the top. You see, TikTok doesn't work like other social media channels. Most people scroll through the For You feed rather than the one that curates content from accounts they've chosen to follow. What that means is that unlike Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, the channel is far better optimized for discovery. So whereas brands have worked hard for years to build an audience of followers or subscribers on other social media channels, on TikTok that's not necessarily a prerequisite for success. The platform is much more effective at proactively sharing good content with an audience who hasn't had to seek it out. In that respect, it is the most viral of all the modern social media channels and therefore the easiest to gain traction on. So, while measuring success is partly about tracking follows, more important are the number of tribal engagements, namely likes and comments a post attracts. It's these that influence whether or not a post is pushed forward by the algorithm. In my episode on the 11 metrics for marketing success, I went into more detail on tribal engagements, but essentially these are any engagement with content which is not designed to take the audience member closer to the purchase, hence differentiating it from a transactional engagement such as like a click. So tribal engagements are a measure of advocacy. They are arguably the closest thing we marketers have to being able to measure how much people like what we're doing. And how much people like what we're doing is important because over time, all that positive sentiment encourages purchase intent and passes on to long-term business value. Why did the Washington Post take up TikTok? Because they knew it would give them credibility with younger audiences. Remember, awareness can be bought. Advocacy must be earned. And these young people are the paper's customers of the future. Okay, that's about all for this week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do like, comment, share, subscribe, review, or just blow me a kiss if you see me in the street. I post a new episode here every week, each one exploring how an innovative brand is shaking up their industry with extraordinary marketing, so please do check back regularly. If you prefer more of the human touch, I'm available for client work, training sessions and speaking gigs. To find out how to talk to me about any of that, visit x-cmo.com. Until next time, thank you for your attention.